Apparently, you guys really liked the last video on good habits that'll help you climb out of your rank. And since you guys seemed so interested in the topic, we thought it might be a good idea to make a follow-up video giving you guys one more good habit for every rank. To kick this list off, let's start by talking about the Iron rank. Being the lowest rank in the game, the mechanics of your average Iron player are not very well refined. Arguably more important than anything is being able to drill those mechanics so they become second nature. This tip isn't anything too crazy, but consider heading into the practice range. Stand behind the broken wall and just practice swinging, letting go of your movement key, and then shooting. It is important to make sure you're taking your time with these shots. I've noticed a lot of Iron players rush their shots and start shooting before they've even stopped moving. This pretty much ensures you're gonna miss your shots even if the crosshair's in the right spot. Just drill this movement until it starts to become natural in your games and you'll see a ton of improvement. And breaking this habit alone is usually enough to climb your way into bronze. Now that you're in bronze, not running while you're shooting isn't really enough on its own anymore. It is a great habit, don't get me wrong, but to get into silver, you're gonna need to do just a little bit more. One thing I see with a ton of bronze players is they tend to aim down sights way too much. If I'm being honest, you really shouldn't be ADSing at all when using a Phantom or a Vandal. It lowers your fire rate and makes you less mobile. There are some good situations where ADSing can be good, like if you're trying to get one tap from across the map with your Vandal, but for the most part, I would just avoid doing it altogether. Fix this habit and you will slowly climb your way into silver. Now that you're in silver, things definitely start to get a bit harder. The average silver player is much better than the average iron or bronze, and some of them have pretty good aim. So, to crack into gold, you're gonna have to start doing something different to differentiate yourself. One of the biggest problems I see in silver has to do with the team economy. A lot of the time, the losing team seems to refuse to save for a single round. There are also a ton of situations where I've seen one or two players full buy and the other 3 players on a save. This does happen at other ranks, but it's extremely common in silver. My advice is to get in the habit of checking your team's economy at the start of every round. Then, decide whether or not your team should be buying or saving that round and communicate that opinion to your team. Even if your team disagrees, at least you guys are on the same page. The last thing you want is to lose winnable games because you threw multiple rounds where players were full buying when they should have been saving and saving when they should have been buying. Get into this habit and you'll find your games start to feel a little more consistent and you'll be in gold in no time. Now that you're in gold, congratulations, you are now officially ranked higher than the average Valorant player. But that's not our goal. Our goal is to reach the highest rank possible. So, what can we do to climb out of gold? Well, gold is a rank where you can still easily hard carry games if you don't know what you're doing. So, the habit I'm going to give you is one that you should focus on breaking, which is to not commit to every single fight you find yourself in. This means a couple of things. First, don't wide swing every time you want to check for an enemy, and 2, don't instantly crouch when you get into a gunfight either. Instead, try to jiggle peek quickly for info, maybe shoot a bullet or two, and then reposition yourself. This will help you stay alive longer during each round to allow you to have more impact. This also makes you more unpredictable, and might even land you a couple of free kills here and there on unsuspecting enemies. In an elo like gold where players start to have better crosshair placement, finding a way to keep yourself alive and have more impact every round is a great way to climb your way out of the rank. And the next rank on the list, of course, is Platinum. If you thought gold players had decent aim, well, Platinum is a very different beast. When it comes to aim, it can take quite a while before you start to see any improvement. So instead of just improving your aim, I would instead focus on utility usage and how you can use your abilities to give yourself an advantage in gunfights. My advice is to try your best to never dry peek an angle if you can help it, especially on buy rounds. If you or a teammate has utility to use, you should probably be using it. On a side execute, make sure you're using your flashes to clear corners, even if you don't know if there's an enemy hiding there. Don't just walk into a smoke. Have your Sky or Sova dog or drone through it, just in case someone is in there with a shotgun. In Platinum, it starts to get harder to just rely on your aim to win games, so make sure you're using your utility properly and not saving it for the next round every time, and you should find your way into Diamond in no time. And now that we're in Diamond, things definitely start to get difficult for most players. At this point, you're playing with the top 5 to 10% of players in the game every time you queue up. So if you want to climb out, you're going to have to do something to stand out. The tip that I'm going to give to you diamond players is a little bit more abstract, and that is to analyze every round and adapt to what the enemy team is doing. I admit this can sound a little vague, so let me explain. Before you get into diamond, you can kind of do the exact same thing every single round. Most of the time, you won't get punished. I've seen players in lower elos try the exact same flank 10 times in a row and have it work every single time. But around diamond, you'll find that this is not the case anymore. So if you want to climb out of this rank, you need to be able to adapt. Maybe try flanking once or twice, and then don't flank on that third round. This can create a ton of pressure since the enemy team will probably be expecting you to be flanking and dedicate either a player or a piece of utility to hold for you. Another example is if you start noticing that the enemy team is just executing every single round and constantly alternating which site they go to. Well, then why not stack the site you think they're pushing to catch them off guard and steal a round from them? Thinking about what's happening in the game and making sure you don't just go autopilot is very important as you climb up the ranks, and it starts to matter a lot more once you're in diamond. By keeping your brain on and actively thinking about the game between rounds, you should be able to eventually climb your way into the new Valorant rank, Ascendant. Once you've reached Ascendant rank, climbing out can feel very difficult. Most players in this rank are pretty good at the game, and it's pretty likely that you're doing a lot of things right if you've made it this far. The biggest thing that separates players in this rank from Immortal level players is consistency. So if you want to climb out of Ascendant, you need to start to become more consistent in your ranked games. My best advice is try to limit how many games you're playing in a row and only play when you're feeling on that day. As someone who made it to this rank, it's very likely you play this game a ton. But trust me when I tell you, limiting yourself to only 3 games per sitting will help you climb in the long run. After that third game, you're likely getting tired and you're not focusing as well as when you started, meaning you're more on autopilot. Also, if you didn't sleep very well the night before, or you're exhausted after a long day, maybe you should consider playing on an alt account instead. At this rank, you can't really afford to be playing at less than 100%. I know, it can be tempting to get back on that Val grind even when you're exhausted. But trust me, if you decide to queue up when you're not feeling it, you will regret it. Start implementing this, and trust me, you'll find yourself consistently doing well in your games, and eventually, you'll hit Immortal. And that concludes this video. Hopefully with these tips, you guys are able to have a much easier time ranking up. If you're still with us this far into the video, please consider hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel if you haven't already.